Yes!
In year 2 of Destiny 1, we were introduced to something that still has yet to be introduced into Destiny 2. I'm referring to class-exclusive weapons, most specifically class-exclusive exotic weapons. The Taken King expansion gave us the opportunity to complete a quest from the gunsmith, and when completed, you received the Tlaloc for the Warlock class, the Fabian Strategy as a Titan, and the Ace of Spades as a Hunter. If you didn't join the Destiny community until Destiny 2, the only one of these weapons you'd be familiar with would be the Ace of Spades, since it's the only one of the 3 that made it into Destiny 2. This was for storyline and lore-oriented reasons, so it made perfect sense. Now, a lot of people may not realize this, but the Fabian Strategy does exist in some form in Destiny 2. Okay, the Fabian Strategy itself isn't literally in Destiny 2, but it does have a very worthy spiritual successor that does most, if not all, of the same things. If you haven't figured out by now, the weapon I'm referring to is the Huckleberry Exotic Submachine Gun. And right now, you're probably over here scratching your head trying to figure out why in the world I'm comparing the Huckleberry to the Fabian Strategy. Don't worry, I got you. Let's compare these weapons side by side so things will make more sense. First off, let's compare the signature exotic perks of both of these weapons. The Huckleberry's exotic perk, Ride the Bull, states that its rate of fire and recoil increases as you hold the trigger down, and kills will reload a portion of the magazine. Fabian Strategy's frontline perk states that its handling, stability, and rate of fire increases when enemies are close, and kills will reload a portion of the magazine. Now, these two perks aren't identical, but the two things that they share is the fact that their rate of fire can increase beyond what the designated archetypes are capable of, and the reloading a portion of the magazine aspect. Also, the Fabian Strategy has the crowd control perk, and the Huckleberry has D2's version of crowd control known as Rampage. So once again, they aren't identical, but they are very similar. Fabian Strategy technically could return to Destiny 2, but it would have to be reworked from the ground up in order to distinguish itself from the Huckleberry. And that definitely isn't unheard of, because the D2 version of the Ace of Spades is literally leaps and bounds ahead of its D1 version, and it's to the extent where they're almost two completely different weapons. If Bungie was to bring the Fabian Strategy into Destiny 2 with its D1 talent tree, they might as well bring back the Tlaloc Supercell, whose spiritual successor is the Wrist Runner in many ways, and in my opinion, it wouldn't make sense to have two exotic weapons existing in the same game with most, if not all, the same endeavors. Also, if the Fabian Strategy existed in Destiny 2, I couldn't see it being Titan exclusive anymore because, as I previously stated, this isn't something that's ever been done in Destiny 2. Moving on. As a Warlock main, I may sound a bit biased when I say that I would love to be able to use the Tlaloc again. But realistically, I'm not trying to be biased. I'm just saying I'd love to use this weapon again because it was reliable in any game mode you use it in. In Destiny 1, scout rifles were always my go-to weapons for PvE. They always felt reliable against any and every type of enemy in the game. I had multiple scout rifles with triple tap and firefly, since that role has so much synergy and power. With that role, I would be able to DPS a boss's crit spot and take care of trash mobs with the same weapon. It was amazing. But in Destiny 2, scouts just don't feel all that rewarding or powerful even after the couple of times that they receive damage buffs. Pulse rifles have always been my favorite weapons for PvP, but in D1 I never used them in PvE. But in D2 it's the exact opposite because I use pulse rifles in PvE and PvP since scouts never really felt like they were accomplishing anything in my loadout whenever I used them. Now, the Tlaloc never had triple tap or firefly or anything similar, but it was voted as one of the most broken primary weapons in Destiny 1 because of its Overflow perk. Overflow granted the Tlaloc bonus stability, handling, and rate of fire when a wielder's super energy is fully charged. So, if this weapon was in Destiny 2, it would be in the 180 RPM archetype, but once the Overflow perk kicked in, its rounds per minute would jump from 180 to 200 something. I said 200 something because from what I remember, when the Overflow perk is in effect, the Tlaloc could outshoot the Mighty Multi-Tool, which is a 200 RPM scout rifle. Now, I can't 100% recall if this is ever confirmed, so feel free to let me know in the comment section if you know this for a fact. Also, I forgot to mention that the Overflow perk doesn't decrease the Tlaloc's impact to compensate for the rate of fire increase. It still retains the same impact of a 180 RPM scout rifle, but shoots as fast, if not faster, than a 200 RPM scout. Again, this is only possible when your super is fully charged. But it was 100% worth it to hang on to your super for a little while because the Tlaloc would reliably 3-tap people, so it was rare that you'd ever lose a gunfight with this thing. Now that I think about it, this reminds me a lot of the Redrix Claymore and Broadsword in the sense that these are both weapons that increase their rate of fire under certain conditions while still retaining the impact belonging to their specific archetype, yielding a blindingly fast time to kill. Redrix Claymore and Broadsword are able to get away with this because the Desperado perk only lasts about 7 seconds and it requires you to get a headshot in order to proc it. Furthermore, the 340 RPM pulse rifles aren't anybody's go-to weapons to use in PvP, and they have a pretty steep learning curve. So if you're able to proc Desperado, you 100% deserve it because you work for it. But scout rifles on the other hand are fairly simple to pick up and use. Despite the fact that you're more rewarded for hitting crits while using one, they still get the job done no matter how you use them. You think that Luna's Howl not forgotten or annoying to go against? Think about something for a second. Magnificent Howl lasts for about 4 seconds, but it'll instantly go away the second that you don't hit a headshot or the next time you miss a shot. Desperado lasts about 7 seconds, but Overflow lasts as long as you have your super. And it isn't mandatory to use your super either, so you could literally have the Overflow perk up for almost an entire match if you wanted to. I'm comparing the Tlaloc to these weapons because the power fantasy approach is drastically different in Destiny 2. In D1, we had too many errors where nightmarishly broken weapons wreaked havoc in the crucible until they were eventually nerfed into the ground. I personally believe that Bungie is trying to avoid going through this again, and if I have to be honest, they've done a pretty good job with weapon balance in PvP in Destiny 2, and to my acknowledgement, we've never had any severe weapon nerfs in Destiny 2. Another part of me believes that Bungie doesn't want a powerful force like the Tlaloc to exist in PvP without a much bigger cost than simply having your supercharge. I know a lot of people hated the Mida multi-tool meta in year 1 of Destiny 2, but imagine if the Mida had the same impact as the Nameless Midnight. You would literally be able to 3-tap any and everything, and that's exactly what the Tlaloc would be doing if it was in D2. Granted, it would shake up the meta a little bit and give these currently overused weapons in the crucible and run for their money. And the power of this weapon would definitely bring a bit more attention to scout rifles as a whole, if I was to honestly assume, and if it did, it would definitely do something differently and wouldn't be Warlock exclusive. Now that I think about it, the fact that the Tlaloc was Warlock exclusive was a big plus because the Warlock class always has been, from what I've seen, the least used class in both Destiny games. So even if you ran into a Tlaloc in PvP, it wasn't a common occurrence. But it definitely would have been if the Tlaloc was Hunter exclusive, since the Hunter class is the most popular class in the franchise. So to conclude this video, I don't think we'll ever see the Tlaloc and Fabian Strategy return in Destiny 2. The Ace of Spades returned due to the fact that it's K6's signature weapon, and it made sense to bring it into D2 since K ended up dying. I would like to see class exclusive exotic weapons become a thing in Destiny 2, but if I had to be 100% realistic, I don't ever see this happening. Alright everybody, I'm done here. If you made it to the end and enjoyed this video, do me a favor and backhand slap that like button and follow up with an uppercut to that subscribe button if you're new to my neck of the woods and if you want to see some more elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1LHD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.
And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.